We're going to take a quick look at how a stock Retroid Pocket 2 Plus handles PlayStation 2 emulation. Starting off with Kinetica. Now Kinetica actually runs pretty smoothly on the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus, which I was quite surprised with because there is quite a lot of graphical detail in Kinetica. Being a racing game, you would really struggle to play through this if the frames per second were too low and things were a little bit too choppy. It would really be a difficult experience. But as we can see, the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus handles Kinetica on the PlayStation 2 pretty well. It's not perfect, there's definitely issues, and you can really see some slowdown whenever you come across any of the particle effects or going through water or anything like that. But for the most part, the races are completely enjoyable and you can get a proper gaming experience from Kinetica. Next up is the original Burnout for the PlayStation 2. And we can really start to see the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus starting to struggle with PlayStation 2 emulation here. Things are playing almost like they're in slow motion, it's so laggy now, even to the point where you can see the counter counting down the seconds is just so slow. Next up we have EA Big Shocks, which is one of my favourite underrated racing games. And I was really looking forward to being able to play this on the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus, but unfortunately this is the worst of the bunch so far. The graphics are just so slow and jaggedy, but it gets even worse than that, where you can see the actual track is failing to render in a lot of areas. Of all the emulation we've looked at so far across the GameCube and the PlayStation 2, I've never seen any real graphical issues like this. But Shocks is really struggling, and even if you were the most forgiving gamer and could play a racing game effectively in slow mode, you wouldn't be able to do it with Shocks because you can't even really see where you're going. And on top of that, the audio is just an absolute mess. It seems to just be repeating everything 3 times. I'm not even sure if that was a feature of the original game, I'm pretty sure it wasn't. Now things do start to improve a little bit if we look at a different type of game, and that's NFL Blitz the League. You can still see it's slow, and this is kind of the pattern now, apart from Kinetica, which was smooth for the most part and had a few slowdowns. Most of the games we've looked at for the PlayStation 2 have run really slowly. Now NFL Blitz the League also does run slowly, but with the nature of the game being an American football game, it kind of gets away with it a little bit. Like I said in the GameCube video, I'm a very forgiving gamer, and sometimes these slowdown issues I can work around and still enjoy the game. And honestly, I've been enjoying NFL Blitz the League quite a lot, even though it is definitely slower than it was intended to be. Moving on to a different style of game, and Blood Omen 2 is a game I've really been looking forward to going back to. It's one of my favourite from the PlayStation 2 generation, but unfortunately it doesn't run very well on the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus. The issue again, as we've seen over and over, is that things are running slow, but also the audio has its own issues in this game as well. The audio seems to be running at the proper speed, despite the fact that the cutscenes are running slower, so you'll end up with the audio finishing and you're still watching a slow motion version of the cutscene finishing off before you can actually get back into the gameplay.
Now, proceed down this street. I shall be waiting.
To try and give PlayStation 2 emulation on the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus the best chance, I thought I'd go with one of the early release titles, thinking that this was probably going to be one of the least CPU intensive on the actual system. But unfortunately, Jak and Daxter the Precursor Legacy is also another slow running game on the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus. It's not too far off, it feels like it's really close, and maybe with a bit of tinkering in the settings we could get some of these games running a bit smoother and a bit more playable. But as it stands, from all the games I've checked out so far, only really Kinetica runs smoothly for the most part, with a few issues when we've got some of the higher intensity particle effects on the screen. And NFL Blitz the League is playable for me, but it certainly shows issues of slowdown. All the other games we've seen just cannot be played on this device.